of the committee and indirect tax study group, Hem Chajar, conveners, Rushabh Bhai, Honorable Secretary, Convener Tarang Kothari, Priyam Bhai, Nikhil Bhai, and participants. We welcome you all, and as we know that compliance is going to taken over by the technology, and at that time we definitely going to face litigations, and for that we need to have our skills sharpened, and for that we have today's learned faculty and a topic SCN and appeals. I'm sure that we are going to get a great tone and understanding of the topic with the blessings of Advocate Raghuraman sir. Now I request CA Taran Kothari to take it forward. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. I am happy to introduce Raghuraman sir. He is known to us, everyone. He is CA, CS, LLB, and ICW by qualification. He has achieved first rank in BCom. He is rank holder in CA Inter as well as CA Final and ICW Inter and Final. By profession, Raghuraman sir is advocate as well as chartered accountant. His area of specialization is GST, excise, customs, service tax, foreign trade policy, FEMA, etc. And he is expert in indirect tax planning, litigation, and appear before various courts. Apart from this, he is visiting public. As we all know, we have heard him in many seminars and conferences. He is addressing and published. He has also published various papers on national magazine on GST, excise, customs, service tax, FEMA. He is member of indirect tax committee of ICI during 2014-15. And apart from this, is also a visiting faculty for IIM Bangalore and CA Institute. It is our pleasure, sir, to hear on our CA Association seminar. Thank you very much. Yes, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, the Chartered Accountant Association of Ahmedabad. I am happy to be addressing all of you once again. We're not able to meet physically, so we will do this. In fact, this format has been quite successful over the last 1.5 years, and I think the chartered accountants are to be commended for this effort which they have been doing. If you look at what I have been saying all the while, I do not know if you have seen my speeches earlier, that CA should not be in compliance more than what is necessary, because compliance is a field which is going to be completely run either automatically or by the organizations themselves. It is going to be run by bigger organizations which have the capability of investing hugely in technologies. And we should look at the intellectual ability which we have had always to help the clients. Let us be very clear. We may be, officers of the court, we may be officers of so and so, whatever it is you represent, but then you have to be loyal to your clients. You have to defend your clients properly. You cannot tell your client that I will not be able to defend you in X, Y, Z or whatever it is. It's your duty to defend the client. Even Mr. Kasab was defended in India. They defended him in India. So what is this GST fake invoicing you don't want to defend? How can you say you can't defend your client? He may be a victim also. I'm not saying that fake invoicing should be done. No, I'm not saying that. Fake invoicing is a heinous crime, but you look at it. You get 1,20,000 crores from every month from GST. Multiply by 12, that is 14,40,000, 14 lakh crores. Out of 14 lakh crores, your fake invoicing is not even 4 or 5,000 crores. What is the percentage, my dear? Not even 0.5%. Are you going to make the law stringent for 99.5% because 0.5% of the population are bloody doing nonsense? I don't think that is right. You, in fact, should help the 99.5% by giving incentives to them. So we will look at where the chartered accountants can add value. And let me tell you, the going away of 9C is a blessing in disguise for the chartered accountants, because you are going to have 3 times the number of show cause notices that are going to come. And after 3 years, whatever revenue you lost in 9C, you will make up that comfortably with interest. Because I am addressing Gujarat, I have to not just talk of principle, I should also talk of interest. So with interest, you will make it. Don't worry. So we will look at just one aspect of the law. I am going to only touch upon 73, 74, and 75. Just 3 aspects, that is. To say show cause notice, what they call as adjudication in law, but this law seems to have a mixture of both the state law and the central law. If you look at how the GST law is structured, the states wanted the assessment functions. So right from 59 onwards up to whatever followed, went into the assessment route. Then 73 and 74 is actually called an adjudication in central excise or in customs law and service tax. But if you look at the recent decisions of the Supreme Court in Canon India, which we will discuss later, it is apparent that 73 and 74 are reassessment provisions. You can call it adjudication, but it looks more like a reassessment provisions. So we will look at each aspect of 73 and 74. I will summarize the provisions first, and then we will look at some peculiar things which arise in this. Now 73, what is it? As I have told you, it's an adjudication provision. What do you mean by adjudication? Or what do you mean by reassessment? Under 59, you do the assessments yourself. You file a return. Now, it is quite possible that the return filed is scrutinized. After scrutiny of the returns, the department may find that they are not agreeable to certain issues in the return. Now, they are competent to issue a notice to you and ask you to pay the amounts or accept the reassessment. Now, you may not accept the reassessment. You may say, I do not accept what you are, after scrutiny of the returns, whatever you are talking, we are not willing to accept it. The assessees are at liberty to say that. So once the assessee says that he is not accepting the results of the scrutiny of returns, then the only recourse that the department can have is to issue an reassessment notice. Now, what can they issue this reassessment notice or adjudication notice under 73? There are instances where they can issue are simply this: non-payment or short payment of tax, erroneous refund, wrong availment, or utilization of credit. 73 covers cases which are other than fraud. Now, what are they going to tell you in that notice? That notice is very important. The notice should specify the amount, should specify that the interest is being demanded. Though interest, there are decisions of the courts which says interest is automatic, and it proposes to give a penalty. Now, when they serve a notice to you, a detailed notice to you called the show cause notice, they are also supposed to give you a summary of the show cause notice in what is called the DRC-01. And the repeat show cause notices are given in DRC-02. That means they don't need to give show cause notice. They'll just give a statement of letter which specifies the amounts. Unlike the excise, customs, and service tax laws, here adjudication limits have been fixed from 3 years from the date when the annual return should have been filed, or 3 years from the date of the return. The adjudication should be complete. That means to say, from the time when the annual report or annual return is being filed, it is mandatory for them to complete the adjudication process by 3 years. And therefore, any show cause notice, the limit should be 2 years and 9 months, because a 3-month gap should be given between the issue of notice and the completion of the adjudication process. This is contained in 73(3) of the Act. Now, there are certain provisions which say that in 73, which are beneficial to the assessee if he is willing to pay the amounts. Now, it is quite possible that even before the issue of the show cause notice, the officer will write to the assessee in what they call as DRC 1A. And if the assessee pays the amount in DRC 03, it will be accepted in DRC 04 by Rule 142, and then no show cause notice will be issued. In other words, if there is a voluntary payment of tax and interest even before the issue of show cause notice, under 73, no penalty will be imposed, no show cause notice will be issued, and the entire proceedings come to a close. It's quite possible that some balance is left out, in which case the show cause notice can be issued for the balance. It is also possible that show cause notice is issued, and within 30 days of issue of show cause notice, tax and interest is paid. Even in such cases, there will be no question of levy of penalty. Now, what happens if the assessee does not accept? Then in such case, he files a reply in DRC 06, and then the tax and interest and a maximum penalty of 10% or 10,000, whichever is higher, will be issued. Now, this is the in sum and substance. These are the proceedings under 73. That means to say, 73 covers non-payment, short payment of tax, erroneous refund, and wrong and availment or utilization of credit, other than fraud. Now, when it comes to fraud, willful misstatement of facts, suppression of facts, all these three, if these are involved, then 73 does not apply. Section 74 will apply. In the section 74, one must be very careful. The non-payment, short payment of tax or erroneous refund or availment or utilization of credit should be accompanied by fraud, willful misstatement or suppression with intention to evade tax. Now, this term intention to evade tax will permeate through all the three categories. Fraud is always an intention to evade tax. Suppression of facts must be to intention to evade tax. Misstatement of facts also should be with the intention to evade tax. All of this we should understand. In 74, there must be an intention to evade the tax. Now, as far as the issue of notice is concerned, I told you 3 years is the time limit in 73 for the purpose of finishing the adjudication, and 3 months before notices should be issued. In case of 74, they've extended that period to 5 years, and show cause notices should be issued within 4.5 years. That is, the 6-month time period is given. Now, let us assume that you get a show cause notice for your client, assessee, and he wants to pay it off. Or even before the issue of the show cause notice, he wants to pay. Now, 74 is worded differently from 73 in this respect. If you look at 73, voluntary tax payments are tax plus interest, no penalty. But under 74(5), if the ingredients of intention to evade tax is present, show cause notice will not be issued if you make a voluntary payment of tax plus interest plus 15% of the taxes penalty. Supposing show cause notice gets issued and you want to settle it, tax plus interest plus 25% of the penalty is to be paid. Now, if you still want to contest it, then it will be tax plus interest plus 50% penalty, which can be levied on you if you have recorded the items in the books of accounts. Now, in this law, if you look at it carefully, suppression has been defined. Willful misstatement, fraud is not defined, but suppression has been defined. What does it say? Suppression is defined in explanation 2 to 73 to say this. Non-declaration of facts required to be declared. That is, you are required to declare a fact, you don't declare it. Failure to furnish any information asked for in writing by the proper officer. So you should be very careful. It is not only, declaration which you have to give and you don't give as required by law. Supposing the officers write to you that you should furnish an information and you do not give the information, it will become suppression. And also understand this. The law says in 75, if the charge of suppression fails, the demand will be restricted to the normal period. That means, let us assume a case where you lose on the classification, but you win on the extended period. It would mean that the department can proceed against you for up to 3 years, as per section 73 and not 74. And that's what it means by this. Now, invocation of extended period is not an easy thing. Now, let me look at some of the issues that can come up, especially when you are doing an adjudication. What do you mean by this? Now, typically, what happens is when we do an adjudication, a procedure has to be followed. Such procedures are found in several laws or several sections of a particular law. Now, in GST law, section 75 has codified this. And it says, personal hearing is to be granted when the assessee makes a specific request for the same, or the proper officer contemplates an adverse decision against the assessee. Therefore, in all cases, personal hearing will be given because generally the proper officer will contemplate only adverse decisions. 99% of the cases, as I've always been telling my friends, is that always there is adverse orders at the levels of the AC, DC, or even lower. Even the commissioner appeals, we find is not a satisfactory mechanism. So personal hearing has to be granted in all the cases. But I would advise my chartered accountant friends, please, in your reply to the show cause notice, ensure that you ask specifically for personal hearing. How many adjournments can be granted? As per 75(5), maximum of 3 adjournments can be granted. After that, no further adjournment will be granted. But let me tell you that these are all directory provisions in my opinion. If a person, for genuine reasons, is unable to attend hearings, even beyond 3 adjournments can be given. For example, COVID, you see, there's no question of you attending. You can only do video conferencing, and it's quite possible that all the 3 dates that the department fixes, you are in high court or you're doing some other important work. So in my opinion, 75(5), though it is worded as if it is mandatory, it looks to me that it is only directory in nature, and therefore even if 3 adjournments are, let us say, 3 adjournments are given, and the 4th adjournment he refuses to give and passes an order, you can have that order set aside on the ground that it has violated the principles of natural justice, except that you have to prove that you were fairly diligent in the first 3 times and that it was not gross negligence in the first 3 times. Now, this section also very clearly sets out in 75(6) and 75(7). This is very important. It should set out the facts and it should give the basis for his decision. Now, generally, I have found that the department will set out the facts rather elaborately. There is no problem in that part of the order. But when it comes to giving the basis of the decision, it is sometimes it is very, very terse. It does not explain everything. The contentions taken by the assessees are brushed aside, and these kind of orders are passed. So this will be a good basis for us to fight in future, that if the basis of the decision is not found in the order can be set aside even in a proceeding before the High Court. 75(7) specifically says the demands cannot exceed the amounts specified in the notice. This is very important. If the notice does not disclose the amount, in my humble opinion, the demand cannot be enforced against the assessee. 75(9), however, says as far as interest is concerned, even if it is not stated in the order, it will be payable. This is what I said, that this also supports some of the court decisions which say that interest is automatic. But let us keep in mind this, very, very important. Interest automatic means you must and should have a provision for the purposes of interest. If you don't have a substantive provision for interest, charging the interest, there is no question of you collecting the interest. And fortunately, section 50 does talk of interest provisions, but not fully. It is only partially, in my opinion, the sense that for wrong or availment or utilization of input tax credit, we don't have a provision for charging interest at all under the present GST regime. The present GST regime under 50(3) only is talking of mismatches and interest thereon. There is no other provision which says that for wrong utilization or wrong availment, interest is chargeable. So even though interest is automatic, interest has to be provided for in the section for it to be automatic. Now, period which is mentioned in the section has to be followed. You cannot have an adjudication beyond 3 years in section 73 and beyond 5 years in section 74. Such an adjudication which goes beyond the time period specified can be struck down by any high court in the country as being beyond that period. But in computing that period of 3 or 5 years, we have to be careful. Wherever stay has been given by the courts, that period will be excluded, number one. Wherever similar matters are pending or say on the same issue before several courts, then till such time those matters are decided, automatically this period can also get extended. So these two provisions which are there in 75 will also have to be kept into in your notice. Then 75 also says when penalty has been imposed under 73 or 74, then no other penalty can be imposed on the same person for the same act. So once that is done, no further penalty proceedings. Now these are in a gist, the provisions relating to adjudication or reassessment as the case may be. And we will slowly look in and see what are the issues which come into the adjudication proceedings. What are the issues? As I told you, the important thing here to note is that even though it is called adjudication, the Supreme Court believes in Canon India's case that section 28 of the Customs Act is nothing but a reassessment provision. And they are right. 73 or 74 is so worded that they are essentially an assessment provision or an assessment proceeding that is done when the department does not agree with the assessments that you have done. One of the first and foremost principle that we should look at, and which chartered accountants should also keep in mind, is to help their clients, is that when a show cause notice is issued, can it be challenged in the High Court directly? What are the principles for it? Should I bypass the normal procedure of adjudication? Should I bypass the normal procedure of reassessment and go directly to the High Court? Will it help my client? Not in all cases, we should understand that we can go to the High Court directly. What are those cases where you can go to the High Court directly? If you look at the celebrated decisions of the Supreme Court in Whirlpool's case or the Radhesham's case, where they reiterated all these principles, they have said this: you can go to the High Court if you're challenging the provisions of law. Supposing a notice is issued on input tax credit. You want to challenge 16.4, you want to challenge 86A, you want to challenge 36.4 rule. You can go directly to the High Court because you're challenging the virus of the rules. You're challenging the virus of the act. When I say challenging means you're saying that it is unconstitutional. Or you may also say that the rules are going beyond the act, which challenge can be laid before the High Court. It's also possible that you can say that the show cause notice is completely prejudged. They have already come to a conclusion. The wordings of the show cause notice are such that they have reached a conclusion that you're not entitled to input tax credit. These kind of, cases where you challenge the constitutional validity, or you challenge that the rules are ultra virus the act. For example, you may challenge that 86A is not even having a provision for hearing the other party. You can block the credit even without hearing. These kind of challenges can be made where the show cause notice has been issued without jurisdiction. This is very important. Without jurisdiction. Then also the adjudication can be challenged. For example, let us assume that the Central Excise Intelligence, or what they call it, the GST Intelligence Office issues the show cause notice to you. The issue which will arise before the courts or before we go to reply to this show cause notice, issue is whether the DGSTI, are they the proper officers to issue show cause notice? When section 73 and 74 uses the terminology, the proper officer, if you look carefully at the circulars that have been issued by the board, see, there is a definition for proper officer in the GST Act under 2(91). It says the proper officer is the commissioner or the officers who have been assigned that function by the commissioner in board. Now, the board has issued circulars assigning this function. Now, when they use the term, and they have also issued a circular saying intelligence officers can issue show cause notice, but it will be adjudicated by the respective commissioners. The issue that arises is when an adjudication is or reassessment is to be done by the proper officer, should he also issue the notice? Or can notice be issued by anybody? Now, this is a matter which requires a little bit of deliberation. In my view, the notice should be issued only by a person who is competent to issue the notice. Proper officer, when you use the term the proper officer, it means that man who did your assessments, that man who's in charge of your assessments. My humble view is that you must and should have the notice issued only by that proper officer who does your assessments. So if you are in the jurisdiction of the state government officers, only he should do the reassessment. And it stands to reason. Why I'll tell you. And I've argued this before the Karnataka High Court and got stay that the DGSTI should not be allowed to issue show cause notices. On the ground that if 100 officers are invested with these powers, each one will start issuing notices to me, and whom am I answerable to? Every time you can do a reassessment. And how many times will you keep on doing reassessment? How many people can I satisfy? Assessment is a function that should be done only by the proper officers. Those who are appointed to do assessment over me. I file return on the portal and the scrutiny of the return is done by that person to whom I file. Only that person should do the reassessment. It is impossible for a law to be complied with if 100 people are going to issue notices to me. That is the reasoning behind Canon India. Please understand the ratio decided in Canon India is this. You cannot have multiple officers doing the same assessment. One. Second point. If an assessment order has been passed based on this show cause notice, please make sure that you challenge the assessment order. Let us assume that an assessment order is passed against you on classification of some item. You have classified under some heading in HSN. The department says it should be some other heading. The duty differential is hardly 10,000 or 5,000 rupees. So your client may say, to tell you, your fee is more than the tax I have to pay. So I am not going to go in appeal. Please tell your client not to do that. The moment an assessment order gets final against you, you will find it difficult to challenge again and again, because the department may say that you have accepted the challenge. It's another thing that I will always take a stance that there is no estoppel in law. Assessments can be done for different years differently, and therefore I can challenge any number of assessment orders. But I would advise, don't look at the amounts, especially when you're challenging classification and valuation matters. Please go ahead and file your appeals against such orders. Next point we will see on show cause notice. Can a tax be demanded without issue of show cause notice? Let us be very clear with this. If the department writes a letter to you, pay this amount within 7 days. If the department sends audit, wing of the department says, pay this amount immediately. Let us be very clear, as far back as 1988, interpreting section 11A, the Supreme Court in Madhumillan Syntax case very clearly said this. There shall be no recovery of tax without issue of show cause notice. There cannot be any reassessment done without the issue of show cause notice. So let us be very clear on that. If notices are not issued, tax recovery becomes illegal as per the section. In fact, if you look at the section itself, 73, 74, or 75, it says that no orders can be passed demanding an amount in excess of the amount specified in the show cause notice. That means it is mandatory that an order can be passed only if a show cause notice is issued. And if show cause notice is not issued, I cannot even pass an assessment or reassessment order. So you have to see first as a chartered accountant whether first a show cause notice is issued at all. DRC 01 is just a summary of the show cause notice. Besides the DRC 01, they must give you a detailed show cause notice under 73 or 74, as the case may be. Can you go beyond the show cause notice? Let us say show cause notice in 73 or 74 has alleged certain things. 3 allegations have been made against you. Can the order be passed on 3 + 1, 4 allegations? The answer is no. If you look at Ballarpur Industries case, Supreme Court 215 LT, the Supreme Court specifically said this. Show cause notice is the foundation of a case. You can't go beyond it. No proceedings can go beyond the show cause notice. In fact, if you look at 75(7) against, they say the same thing. You cannot demand more than what tax, interest, and penalty has been demanded in the show cause notice. Now, can a corrigendum to the show cause notice be issued? Let us assume they issue you a show cause notice in DRC 01, they issue you 73, 74 notice, and then find out that they've made some error. It is quite possible for them to revise the show cause notice and send it. But you have to be careful here. If they are making any new allegations in the amendment to the show cause notice, and this new allegation goes beyond the period of 2 years, 9 months from the date of annual return, or 4 years, 6 months from the date of the annual return, you can challenge this corrigendum and say it has invoked new issues beyond the time period within which the show cause notice should have been issued. And then to the extent the corrigendum sets out new matters and it is issued beyond the time limit, it will be bad in law and has to be set aside. Now, should the show cause notice state any specific allegations? Yes. Answer is very easy. Yes. Show cause notice based on assumptions and presumptions are not valid, said the Supreme Court in Outh Sugar Mills case. You have to have specific allegations and it should be supported by evidence from the side of the department. They simply cannot say fraud has been committed by the assessee. That's not enough. They should say how fraud has been committed by the assessee. They simply cannot say suppression has been. They should show in the show cause notice how suppression has happened. Many times we have won cases in the courts on the ground the show cause notice has not put me to notice at all as to what allegations are there on invoking the extended period. The department normally will say this. The audit party audited the accounts and found certain things. Therefore, there is suppression. Now, my dear friends, we have to deal with this with some seriousness. If the audit parties point out that something and the proper officer under 73-74 says there's suppression, it is not suppression. It is simply that the assessment officer has slept over whatever returns you have filed. Audit party cannot allege suppression, and based on the audit, the department cannot allege suppression. Unless they can find out that there is a fraud, but there is a willful misstatement. You cannot. And therefore, we will have to see such show cause notices can actually be challenged in a high court in a fit case. What happens if show cause notice is issued and the taxable person dies? What happens? Please note, in the earlier regime of central excise, you could not recover it from the legal representative. Shabina Abraham's case, Supreme Court, 322 LT. But under the present GST regime, to some extent, if the business is carried on especially, or the estates are transferred to a legal representative, to the limited extent, sometimes on full extent when the business is carried on, under Section 93 of the CGST Act, they have provided for following it in the hands of the legal representative. So you must be very careful with Section 93. You just read it carefully and see where it applies, where it does not apply. Show cause notices, let me be very clear, should not be prejudged. That means, please read the wordings of the show cause notice very carefully. If in any of the paragraphs in the show cause notice, it is said, we are convinced that this product is classifiable under this category, or we are convinced that the assessee has created a fraud or has suppressed facts, such kind of language used in the show cause notice will show that the department has pre-decided the issue. Show cause notice itself means this. I am asking you to explain these transactions. I believe that this may have happened. What is your reply? This is what a show cause notice is. Such show cause notices can be valid. But if a show cause notice says, I am convinced you have done this, then it's prejudging. So there is a decision of the Supreme Court in 266 CLT, Oryx Fisheries, where the Supreme Court specifically says, if the department has prejudged the issue in issuing a show cause notice, such a show cause notice is invalid in law. You must keep this in mind also when you see the show cause notice, because what happens is the first point of contact when a show cause notice comes is the chartered accountant. He should look at these factors first before at all he advises his clients. How is the show cause notice to be issued? If you look at 169 of the CGST Act, there are several ways of, putting the show cause. It's a very interesting section, which I think all of you should look at, because we were debating on this section for a long time to see what is this section trying to say. See, it gives you alternate modes. It says you can serve by any one of the following methods. A to F is listed out. A to F is listed out. Any one of the following methods you can issue a show cause notice. By giving or tendering directly. Let us you go with the messenger and give it. Registered post, courier, email, putting it on the common portal. Then ENF, publication in newspaper. If none of the modes aforesaid is practicable, by affixing it on some conspicuous place. That means to say, the question that arises is, can I directly go and affix it in the factory or in the business place? This is an interesting decision of the Allahabad High Court in Kashi Bartan Bhandar's case, 9 GSTL, where you will find the Allahabad High Court said, F can be resorted to only when A to E cannot be done. You cannot go directly and put it onto the business place. First, you should try to serve this notice. If that fails, should send it by registered post, put it on common portal, go serve it through email. If all this does not done, then newspaper, and only if all this is not done, you go to the business place and affix it. So therefore, my humble friends, is that even this section, we are going to have a lot of action in this. How do you interpret 169? Because can I take a stance? I have not seen the common portal at all. I never knew that the orders are there. What do I do? Can I take that stance? Can I take a stance that I am not computer savvy? You have sent the show cause notice by email. You have sent the show cause notice by putting it onto the common portal. I have not seen it. I have missed to see it. My chartered accountant has also missed to see it. Now the time has passed for filing appeal against the order because you issued notice and you adjudicated even without my presence. Now these kind of cases are going to happen and are happening. When it comes to issue of notice and the assessee is taking a stance that they are not conversant with computers and they cannot be blamed for it. It's a difficult proposition to defend if you are paying taxes online and filing returns online. Let us be very clear with this. But if an order is passed, let us assume show cause notice is issued. It is put on the common portal. You have not seen it, your client has not seen it. Officer waits, sends you notices also on the common portal. Personal hearing notices. 3, 4, he sends you whatever it is, 3 mandatory. You don't appear. You have not seen it. He passes an order ex parte, puts it onto the common portal. Now what happens? You have not seen it. Appeal filing time has also expired. What happens now? Can you go now when you wake up? Can you go and take a stance that common portal I do not know how to use? Very difficult for you to take that stance because if you're filing returns online, if you're paying taxes online, you cannot take that stance. But what other stance can you take now? You should look at as chartered accountants. You should look at a situation where, how do I save my client from this? There has been a goof up, as they say. How do I help him? One way is that if an order has been passed without complying with the principles of natural justice, in the sense it is your fault, it is not his fault at all. You can still go to the High Court and say that there has been a failure to follow the principles of natural justice. It is quite true that I am at fault. I did not see my common portal. I did not respond to the notice. Please understand that even in first appeals, only 10% of the amounts are to be put up. In second appeals, only 30% of the amounts are to be put up. If that is the case, there is no reason why a person will deliberately not see a notice and reply to it. So one failure of the principles of natural justice is a good ground to go to the High Court directly, except that the High Court may pass some strictures against you and say you have been a lazy fellow, you are not even looking into your website properly and giving silly excuses. In general, I would suggest that if some such thing happens to your client, kindly file an appeal paying 10% belatedly, and assuming that it is within time, appeal can be heard and decided in your favor, or go to the High Court directly. No problem will happen if the order has been passed, let us say 5 months before or 6 months before, and you have not seen it. You have not filed an appeal. Then what happens? What do we do in such cases? In such cases where you have not filed an appeal, order has been passed, and the time period has been expired, there are two options that you can do. You can either go to the High Court directly or file an appeal with condonation of delay, stating the reasons. Obviously, the Commissioner Appeals will, under the Act, will specifically say he does not have the power to condone delay beyond this time period, as decided by the Supreme Court in Singh Enterprises case. Now, against this order, or he will even quote GlaxoSmithKline Beecham's case, which has come, pharmaceuticals, which has come recently. And he will say that I don't have the powers to condone the delay. Now, once he says he does not have the powers to condone the delay, you take please keep this in mind and note this carefully. Challenge both the orders. Challenge the order of the AC, challenge the order of the Commissioner Appeals. Both should be challenged. Challenge it in the High Court. Challenge it on the grounds that there has been a failure of the principles of natural justice, and GlaxoSmithKline Beecham case does not apply in such cases. There is a decision of the Madras High Court in Mahindra and Mahindra's case where they have said, they have distinguished GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceuticals case on this ground, the division bench of Madras High Court. Second, the Karnataka High Court in Simplex Infrastructure has also distinguished the GlaxoSmithKline and said that the proposition, see, let me put it this way. A statute which has a period of limitation cannot override the powers vested in a High Court under Article 226. The powers vested in Article 226 in a High Court are plenary in nature. Therefore, even if the statute says this is the period, if the High Court finds in a fit case that this period can be relaxed or injustice has been done, in such cases, the High Court can actually interfere, quash the orders of the Commissioner Appeals and the Assistant Commissioner, and send it back for a complete reassessment proceedings. So it's quite possible, even after GlaxoSmithKline's case, that we can go to the High Court and have this set aside based on the decisions that I've given you, Mahindra and Mahindra Madras High Court and Simplex Infrastructure of the Karnataka High Court. These two are the decisions which are now in vogue. I have also told you at some length about this canon India, but I will try to explain this canon India's case to you, because customs law is slightly different from GST law. Under the customs law, section 17 talks of assessment. Read with 46 where you file the bill of entry. A bill of entry is an assessment document. Now, if you do not agree with the bill of entry under section 17(5) of the Customs Act, the officer will pass an order. Now, the issue was this. Section 28 of the Customs Act said the proper officer will issue notice. Please understand. Supreme Court in Canon India's case considered a case where the intelligence officers had issued notice, that is the DRA had issued a notice for reassessment. Bill of entry is an assessment order, and reassessment has been tried to be made. You draw the parallel between Customs Act and the GST Act. In GST Act, section 59, you file the returns, you are doing a self-assessment. Tax, when you raise an invoice, you pay the tax online, you are doing a self-assessment. Reassessment is done under section 73 and 74. Just like in Customs Act, reassessment is done under section 28. Draw the parallel. If you draw the parallel, the ratio is this. They are somewhat similar to each other. Reassessment notice issue is the first step. If you look at section 75, it is mandatory to issue a notice. And the notice should specify an amount, which amount the order cannot exceed. If the show cause notice says 1 lakh, the order cannot say 1,50,000. Even assuming after reassessment, it is found that actually your 1,50,000 is payable, you can take a legal stance that because of the section 75 bracket 7, it is not possible for a confirmation to be made of an amount in excess of the show cause notice. Therefore, issuance of show cause notice is very important. It should be done by a competent officer. So in Canon India, they said that it should be issued by the proper officer. When they use the term the, it means only that person who did assessment. Please note this. In customs, assessment under bill of entry is done already. But in GST, assessment is not done. Assessment is done by the assessee himself. So what is the proper officer? The proper officer means that proper officer who's invested powers. Can I invest the powers with 100 fellows? Next, the issue will come before all of us is, can I invest this power with 100 people? Can I say intelligence, you are invested powers. DG, GSTI, you are invested the powers. DRA, you are invested the powers. Audit party, you are also invested the powers. Audit party in Delhi, you are also invested the powers, all India. Audit party in Calcutta, you also have all India powers. Can I do this? Even though the GST legislation, the assessment, original assessment is not done by the customs, the officers. Well, in Customs Act, it is done by the customs officer. At least earlier, now it's all under self-assessment there also. Fact of the matter is this. When the section says the proper officer, it has to be only one proper officer. Who is that proper officer? It is the person who has jurisdiction over me. And what does the Supreme Court also say? This is the ratio of Canon's decision, which I laid out before the Karnataka High Court. I told the High Court, the ratio of the decision is not the proper, this grammar is, that is also there. The ratio of the decision is this. If I invest these powers with more than one person, it will lead to chaos in administration. This is the words used by the Supreme Court in Saeed Ali's case and in Canon India's case. You will lead to chaos in administration of the law if you invest the powers with more than one person. If 10 people are going to do assessments, audit party in Delhi will issue notice, DRA from Calcutta will issue notice, DRA from Chennai will issue notice. What will happen to an assessee who's sitting in Gujarat? He is to answer all these people. The proper officer who's in charge of his assessment, he does not issue any notice. So therefore, the proper ratio in Canon India is this and only this. The ratio is that if you invest the powers with 100 people or more than one person, it will lead to chaos in administration, and such a show cause notice cannot be issued. Therefore, in my humble view, if any show cause notice or DRC proceedings are taken by the audit party, are taken by the intelligence wing of the department, the very issue of DRC 01, the very issue of 73-74 proceedings is illegal in law. Can you demand for a period beyond 5 years? No, says the Supreme Court. M Square Chemicals case, 231 EIT. M Square Chemicals, 231. They say period cannot be more than 5 years. So that means to say, please understand this. My adjudication in excise of service tax law, issue of show cause notice should be within 5 years. But in GST law, it is even more strict. Adjudication itself has to be done within 5 years. There's no question of you doing an adjudication beyond 5 years. Now, one of the questions that was asked to me is, annual return dates are getting extended. They got extended. That means to say, can I now keep extending my adjudication also to that? Now, let us assume that you have to file the annual return by 31st of December 2021. Again, pandemic continues. Let us assume, bad luck. They extend the date for filing annual return from 31st December to 2021, let us say, to 31st December 2022. That means the department has 5 + 1, 6 years to do adjudication. If you read the law, that's what it says. But let us assume your client has been diligent, he has filed the annual returns on 31st of December 2021. If I has filed it. In such cases, can the department says, no, I'm sorry. The law of limitation, if you read properly, 75 says you should do the adjudication within 5 years from when the annual return should have been furnished. That is from 2022 December onwards, 5 years. You may have furnished it in 2021. That is bad luck for you. This is one interpretation that can be taken. The interpretation I would say is this. If you say that a person who is diligent, for him, the limitation will be 6 years. And for a person who is not diligent and who files the return late, it will be 5 years. It is a stupid law. It is a law which has arbitrary, what is called the principle of manifestly arbitrary, as has been laid out by the Supreme Court in Shaira Banu's case. You can't have a law which is manifestly arbitrary. You cannot say a honest citizen who pays the tax file return, for him limitation will be 6 years, and a dishonest fellow or a lazy fellow who files it late, for him the limitation will be 5 years. I think that will be a very bad ground for the department to proceed also, in my opinion. I'm not saying that that is the view. It is a possible view that the department can take, but we can define it this way. Now, when we come to cases of suppression, normally I find this is one of the points which has been of some concern to me. One is that the department sometimes doesn't even prove how I have done fraud or suppression. One. Therefore, when you make a reply to the show cause notice, you must specifically say that the show cause notice does not set out the ingredients for invoking the extended period. Please refer to the Supreme Court decision in HMM's case, 76 ELT. The Supreme Court says every notice that is issued should clearly set out why suppression is invoked, why fraud is invoked. Very clearly they laid out. So we must be very careful with this. When we make a reply to the show cause notice, we must be very careful with this. The burden to prove suppression is on the department. Please keep this in mind. When they say invoke suppression, when they invoke fraud, misstatement, it should be coupled with the intention to evade taxes. Please make sure about this. Intention to evade taxes should be proved. Even if a fake invoicing case, show cause notice is issued, they should show how your client has indulged in this. How he had an intention. You look at the celebrated decision of the Supreme Court in Tamil Nadu Housing Board's case, 74 ELT, where they said, before you invoke the extended period, 5 years, you must prove that there is intention to evade taxes. If you cannot prove that there is intention to evade taxes, the notice on extended period will go. Similarly, please keep in mind, because of the definition of suppression in section 73, 74, 75, because they have defined suppression in a particular manner, disclosure of facts which are required. Please see the definition, and you must and should be very careful with this, because I find show cause notices saying suppression because you're not given X information, Y information. But what does it say? If you look at the provisions of section 74, suppression shall mean non-declaration of facts or information which is taxable person is required to declare. So you must look into the notice and see whether that information which they say you have suppressed, is it required to be declared in any return? See that first. If it is of an information which is not at all required to be declared, then there is no question of there being suppression. You see, there was an old case in Gujarat High Court, Apex Electrical, 61 volume of ELT, where they said information which need not be disclosed, when not disclosed, means that there is no suppression. I don't need to give an information. I don't give it. Where is the question of suppression then? That is what Gujarat High Court said way back. I'm saying 61 ELT means somewhere 1994, 95, something, that period. Supreme Court, Gujarat High Court said. So the same thing has been incorporated in this law. Your return requires something to be furnished. You are not furnished it, then there is suppression. If your return does not require something to be furnished, you are not furnished it, no suppression. Second, please keep this in mind also. Department has asked you for an information, you're not given the information, then there is suppression. Because it says, failure to furnish any information on being asked for in writing by the proper officer. Please understand this, in writing. And the question that arises is, can it be any information that he can ask you? No, it is any information that is in your possession. Please keep this in mind. I cannot write, a department, as a departmental officer, I cannot write to Mr. Bishan Shah and say, please give me information of Mr. Priyam Shah. That is not possible in law, because Mr. Bishan Shah does not possess information of Mr. Priyam Shah. You want to get information of Mr. Priyam Shah, you write to him. So if Mr. Bishan Shah writes a letter saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Raghuraman, you got it all wrong, I cannot give this information because it is not in my possession. Department then cannot say, no, Mr. Bishan Shah is suppressing, because I asked him for information, he did not give it. So you have to read this explanation too very, very reasonably. carefully but reasonably. Only what information is my possession and I don't give it, only that will be suppression. Now let me come to another case. Let us say first show cause notice is issued to you on the basis of suppression under 74. Can I issue a second show cause notice on 74? In the earlier law in excise, Nizam Sugar's case, factory's case, that is in 197 volume of VLT, the Supreme Court said this: you will not be, if you have issued one notice invoking the extended period, the second notice on the same extended period cannot be invoked, cannot be done. But let us assume in GST how it will work. I'll give you an illustration. Let us say they have issued you a notice in 2021 invoking the extended period from 2017 up to date and saying that you have suppressed some information. Now, in 2023, they write another letter to you asking for some information. It pertains to the period 2020, and you don't give that information. Can they invoke the extended period? In my view, even though the wordings of the explanation to 74 are wider, in my view, once they've asked you for information for a particular tax period, asking for information for the same tax period again and again cannot arise. You can't keep doing multiple reassessments for one tax period. Let us be very clear in this. If I have issued you a show cause notice for a period between 2017 to 2021 already, the matter ends. I cannot go back in 2023, again issue another show cause notice for the period 2020, saying you are not given so-and-so information. In my humble view, the principles of constructive res judicata will apply in such cases. What is this principles of constructive res judicata? It means if you have not raised an issue which you should have raised, you cannot raise that issue again. In the block period of, let us say, 2017 to 2020 or 21, they've issued you a notice for a reassessment, done the reassessment, issued order also. They have noticed, say, 5 issues and they have issued on 5 issues. They have not noticed the 6th issue. They've forgotten or they've not noticed it. Now, 2023, the office suddenly notices that issue. You can invoke the principle of constructive res judicata and say, they have noticed 5 issues. They have missed out the 6th issue. They could have raised it in that. Having not raised it in that, now they cannot raise it. So you must keep this in mind also when you look at 2 show cause notices for the same assessee invoking extended period. You should apply the principles of constructive res judicata, look at the decision of the Supreme Court in Nizam Sugar Factory's case and see whether the second show cause notice can be quashed on the ground that the extended period cannot be invoked. And this can lead to substantial savings for the assessee. If you look at the period between 3 years to 5 years, in 2 years, the turnover and the tax amounts can be substantial. So it will vary from assessee to assessee, but this is also a ground which you are supposed to be taking. Now let us come to another situation. Let us come to a situation where you have assumed that your services or your product is taxable under one head. Or you have assumed that I am eligible for exemption under 12/2017. You have some basis for it. You say I am entitled to this. I have classified my product under HS and so heading. Now, department may have a different view on it. Department may say the classification which you have done under so HS and heading is not correct. It should have been done under another heading. You have classified a product as animal feed, but actually it should be classified as vitamins under 29, not under 23. Question that arises, can extended period be invoked? My answer is no. Classification matters cannot be the subject matter of invoking the extended period because it's a matter of belief. I may think that my product is classified under 23. You may think it is 29. These are difference of opinions, bona fide beliefs, what is called bona fide belief. I think it's not taxable, or it is taxable under some heading. You think it is taxable under some other heading. Those are bona fide beliefs. The extended period cannot be invoked in such cases. Starting right from Pushpam Pharmaceuticals case, I'm telling 78 ELT, up to Sanjay Industrial Corporation in 318 ELT, Supreme Court has been consistent 1998 to 2015, even prior to that and after that. They very clearly said bona fide belief if you have, extended period cannot be invoked. 1. 2. You have claimed the benefit of an exemption. Department says you're not eligible. These are all cases for only normal period, 73 proceedings. 74 proceedings cannot be taken for that also. Let us assume, third case, clubs and associations in Gujarat have taken the benefit of Calcutta Clubs case and they have not been paying tax and GST. Retrospective amendment is now made. Of course, it's not been notified as yet. Assume it gets notified. And the department wants to recover tax for the extended period. Can they do it? No. There is a bona fide belief. There is no fraud. There is no misstatement. There is no suppression with intention to evade because you had a Supreme Court judgment. Even prior to that, you had Gujarat High Court's own judgment in sports clubs case. In all these cases, it was in favor of the assessee. Therefore, you had a bona fide belief. Question of invoking the extended period when retrospective amendments come is not possible. Then we come to what is often we face this problem. Conflicting views. Assessee is sitting in Gujarat. Assessee is sitting in Gujarat. There is one High Court decision which says, your Gujarat High Court decision says, inverted duty structure and section 54 should include input services also. Refund should be given of not only inputs, also input services. Tamil Nadu High Court says, Madras High Court says, no, it has to be restricted only to inputs. Which will I follow? If you're assessing in Gujarat, you follow your Gujarat High Court judgment. Matter ends. Let us say I am the assessee is in Karnataka, in Bangalore. Which will he follow? Issues which will arise, let us say he follows the Gujarat High Court judgment and applies for refund always. Or on taxability, he follows the Gujarat High Court judgment in some case, does not follow the Madras High Court judgment. What happens in such cases? Following one High Court judgment and not another High Court judgment is not suppression. It's not fraud. It's not willful misstatement. It is simply that you are believing this High Court judgment is better than that High Court judgment. Your belief may be wrong, but it's a bona fide belief because there's a judgment of the High Court which you are following. In all these cases, suppression cannot be alleged. if there are conflicting views on a subject matter. In fact, many a times we find that the board itself issuing a circular saying, there has been doubts about the classification of this product. We are now going to clarify this doubt under section 168 by issuing a circular. That wordings itself prove that conflicting views are there on the subject matter, and on conflicting views, an extended period cannot be invoked. You see the decision Ishan Research, 230 volume of ELT, where the Supreme Court says this. And so many cases before and after that also. So what are the guidelines that I should now face when I go into replying to a show cause notice? Now, you split the reply to show cause notice in this manner. When you make a reply, first of all, you should look at the show cause notice and see what is the period for which it's involved, whether it is issued under 73 or 74. What are the documents it places reliance on? Because copies of the documents will have to be given to you. Collect all those documents. Then see if the show cause notice is issued by the proper officer. See whether the person is invoking any section or rule which is ultra vires. If jurisdiction is an issue in point, if ultra vires is an issue in point, you can go directly to the High Court. Otherwise, you can reply to the show cause notice. Make sure that you collate all the information, because I find many a times when we appear in the tribunal or we appear in the high courts, we find that before the first appeal and before the adjudicating authority or the assessment, reassessment authorities, several grounds are not taken because the documentation is not complete. Client would have not given you some documentation. You may also have forgotten. These things happen normally. But make sure as far as possible that you collect all the information and keep it with you, because if any point is missed out in the first reply to the show cause notice, if it is missed out in your appeal, the tribunal sometimes will allow you to take those points, but they will remand the matter back. But when it goes to High Court, if there are questions of fact, the High Court will not interfere, because when you go to a High Court, in the GST law, if it is not writ proceedings, if it is an appeal proceeding, it will be only on substantial questions of law. Please understand. High Court and Supreme Courts exercise jurisdiction of an appellate nature only on substantial questions of law. And when I say substantial questions of law, it means that facts will not be looked into. They take facts to be granted. Whatever fact is recorded by the tribunal, by the first appellate authority, is taken as granted. You cannot go to the High Court and Supreme Court and say, these facts were not brought to the notice of the authority. They will laugh and say, who asked you not to bring it? So factually, you have to make the show cause notice reply very strong, because if you miss out anything there, adding it again becomes very, very difficult, especially when you're at the stage of High Court or Supreme Court. When you draft the reply, you must keep in mind certain things. By drafting, every draft has to be divided into basically two parts. One is merits, second is limitation. Merits of the case, you will make all your points. Each point, one paragraph. Don't confuse and make 2-3 points in one paragraph. Don't do it. Merits, make points. Limitation, make points. Interest, penalty, make points separately. In each of the paragraph, refer to the decision which you want to rely on. File it properly. Take the acknowledgements which are possible on the website. And in these days of COVID, make sure that you scan all the documents and keep it in a cloud. Please do this. I found it very useful. all the show cause notices, the replies that you file, the appeals that you have, please scan that and put it into your cloud. Because it's quite possible that you may have to appear only through VC. And once, so for example, when I'm appearing through VC, my office may be closed. How do I access the file? Suddenly, you see, in High Court especially, the matters are kept the next day. I get cause list today at 7 o'clock in the evening, and next day is the matter. It may not be possible for me to access the file sometimes in these COVID days. So the best way of doing this is please put it in a cloud. It should be possible for you to retrieve all the information that you require for arguing a case from the cloud. Even for your assistants, you may want your assistants to forward some case laws, or put the reply to the show cause notice or the appeal in a cloud. So here they will put it in a cloud and give it to you. You can argue the case. Supposing you file the reply to the show cause notice, and when you're reviewing it before the personal hearing, you find, okay, I have made 12 points as a reply to the show cause notice. I have made 5 points on limitations, 7 points on merits. It's quite possible that, you have missed out 1 point on limitation. You have missed out 2 points on merits. Now you still have a chance. You file during the course of personal hearing, you file an additional submissions where you bring out the additional points. Please do that at the earliest, because if you do that at the earliest, and if he does not take it into account, that's a good ground for you to set aside that order. So even at the stage of personal hearing, you can file additional submissions. One of the things that I find chartered accountants being concerned about is a statement has been recorded from the client saying, yes, I have done this. Or a third party would have issued a statement, especially in this fake invoicing, I find this. A third party would have issued a statement. What statement he has issued? He would have told you. Let us say the department comes to me. And the department comes to me and records a statement. I have made a statement saying the president of CAAA asked me to issue fake invoice, I've issued. Now the president of CAAA has to be defended by his advocate. Now I find many chartered accountants being very concerned with this and saying, oh my God, a statement has been given by somebody implicating my client. What do I do? Very simple. When you prepare a reply to the show cause notice, kindly put this in your reply. We require cross-examination of Mr. Raghuraman, president of CAA. In his reply will say, we want to cross-examine Mr. Raghuraman. Please call him for it. Because under section 136, the statements are relevant, but they are not going to be making you, cannot be the only basis for conviction. Be very careful. Evidence Act, Code of Criminal Procedure, when they use certain terminologies which we as chartered accountants may not be used to it, you have to be careful in studying it. Supposing a confession is made by the person, yes, I have committed fake invoicing. Please understand, even a confession has to be proved. I find a lot of chartered accountants coming and telling me, sir, he has done like this. What do we do? Put the hands on head. What do we do? No. Confessions, when made before an authority, can be challenged on the ground under section 24 of the Evidence Act. It has been got under coercion. And that is mostly the case. Most of the no assessee will go and voluntarily tell anybody that I am a crook. He may be a crook. Fact of the matter is, under duress, he will blabber certain things. What I'm trying to say is we are not going to defend the wrong people. No. But you are not the person to decide somebody is wrong or right. Let's be very clear on that. The persons who will decide who's wrong or right is the judiciary in the country. That is why even Kasab was granted an advocate to defend him. Because it's the judiciary which decides. So section 136, relevancy of statements. You will have to read this very carefully, and you will have to ensure that your clients are defended if possible. The statements are, let's supposing a third-party statement is relied on, such a third-party person should be called for the purposes of cross-examination. Why? Because it is quite possible that when he comes before the authorities for cross-examination, he may tell a different story. This has happened many a times in our matters, where the third party comes and sings a different story. He may say, no, I was coerced to do this, sir. What do I do? The people come at 10 o'clock in the night and threaten me. What else will I do? Sometimes it happens. So third party statements, confession by your client will have to be proved. And the process of proving is through a process called examination and cross-examination under the Act. Please understand, Code of Criminal Procedure is applicable to the GST Act and it should be followed. And when you make this show cause notice reply, please ensure that you add this point. Since the show cause notice replies on statements given by X, Y, and Z, we require that these persons should be called for cross-examination before the adjudicating authority. Once you say that, it is mandatory for them to call the persons. If they do not call these persons for cross-examination, then it's violative of principles of natural justice as held by the Supreme Court in Andaman Timbers case 324 yield. The other point which we need to discuss here is, if there's a change in the authority, can you just rely on the earlier whatever has been done? Please understand, if any person has to take a decision, he has to himself hear the party. If there's a change in the adjudicating authority, the matters have to be, if you have already appeared before the previous person, the subsequent person will have to also hear you. It is compulsory that he should hear you. He can't pass an order just like that, based on record of personal hearing made before the earlier authority. There is a decision of the Supreme Court in Gullapalli Nageshwara's case, very old decision, AR 1958, where they say this. Next and very important question is, there are case laws of the tribunal. There are case laws of the High Court. And many a times we find the department saying, passing an order against the assessee, though there is a case before the tribunal or though there is a decided case in the High Court saying, the department has filed an appeal before Supreme Court, so we are passing orders against. Are these orders valid? In my opinion, an order which says that they will not follow a High Court order is violative of the principles of judicial discipline and can invite contempt action. You are bound to follow the decision of the High Court. You can't say I will not follow. All authorities working in a state are bound to follow that High Court's orders, are bound by the tribunal orders. If you're trying to tell the other side, I will not follow these orders of the tribunal and High Court, then it is completely wrong. Such orders cannot be passed at all. Can an authority review his own order? That's the next question. No, he cannot review his own order. If an order is passed, it can be set aside only in appeal. You can't sit and review your own order. This is called the principle of functus officio. Kuntesh Gupta's case 32 ELT, we find this decision very much done. Therefore, now I have summarized all the case laws which are important for deciding when adjudication can be done, when the extended period of limitation can be invoked or cannot be invoked. What are the principles in section 75? What is the care that you should take in drafting reply to the show cause notice? So now I will hand over the mic back to the organizers, and so that I will be in a position to answer the questions, if any. Yes, sir. Any questions are there? Can I answer this on the chat box?
Yes, sir. One question, sir.
I will go with the chat box. Yes, sir. Please tell me.
Yes, sir. Sir, with regards to retraction, once the statement has been retracted, the assessee can anyways retract the statement and which has been appeared in Vinod Solanki by Supreme Court.
See, this Vinod Solanki's case which you are relying on, please understand this. A statement, confessional statement which has been given. If the statement is in your possession, you should retract it immediately. Normally, what the department does is, they give the statement along with the show cause notice. That is issued after 1 year or 6 months or whatever. You should specifically take a ground saying, this statement, though I gave it 1 year back, it has come to my possession only on so-and-so date. And when you reply to the show cause notice, you must retract the statement. Then only Vinod Solanki's case will apply. If you have made the statement today and the statements are handed over to you today, and then you retract the statement after 1 year, it will not be a valid retraction. It will be an afterthought, as they say. But let me tell you, the principle in Vinod Solanki's case is this. If a statement has been retracted in time, then the department cannot rely only on that statement. They have to give other corroborative evidence. And if they do not have the corroborative evidence, the case will fail. This is the principle. Is it mandatory for the department to specify the particular provision of the act which have been contravened by the taxpayer, or can they make a vague allegation? Let us be clear on this. If the department is saying, this is your allegation, but they've quoted a wrong section or wrong rule by mistake, that does not make the show cause notice invalid. Show cause notice will continue to be valid because they have made the allegation very clear. But if they have simply told you, I'll give you a live example. If they simply told you, based on 26A statement, you are liable to pay tax, what allegation is it? I can't understand these notices that are being issued. 26A, your income can be for anything. It doesn't mean automatically GST is attracted. Halima Zubair's case, Supreme Court, you see. Basis of income tax is different from basis of sales tax. One is income. Just because you have escaped income doesn't mean the escapement of income is on account of sales. So please take that in, keep that in mind.
Can I interrupt
Next
you for a
question.
moment?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I want to ask one question.
Sir, I'll finish this question,
Okay,
then
sir.
you'll ask me.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Somebody already put in, all your questions will be answered, don't worry. If the assessee has been taken ineligible ITC and reversed the same when he realizes mistake, he has always ITC balance in credit ledger. He has not paid tax by using cash ledger. Does he have to pay interest? In my opinion, sir, I have told you. 50(3) covers only mismatch in credits. It does not cover taking of credit either wrongly or rightly or at reversal. In my opinion, there is no statutory provision for recovery of credit in input tax credit cases where you have either taken or utilized credit wrongly. No interest will be payable. Can the department issue a fresh SCN if for any reason first SCN is set aside for non-compliance of any provision of the Act without jurisdiction? No. Unless the High Court says you are at liberty to issue another show cause notice. In fact, the High Courts don't do that. Sometimes they do it. You will have to oppose those things and say, since time limits have been prescribed, if a notice is issued without jurisdiction, a second notice cannot be issued to rectify that, especially if it is beyond the time limit. If I am under central jurisdiction, can Assistant Commissioner of State jurisdiction issue show cause notice? In my opinion, no, because he's not the proper officer. Whether he's proper officer or not itself will have to be fought out now before the courts. In my opinion, no. It has come to my notice that tax due has not been paid or short paid or refund has been released erroneously or income input tax credit has been wrongly utilized by you or the amount paid by you to the above referred application for intimation. Can an allegation be made in the SCN of the above format? See, it has been very clearly, I've told you, allegations you can make in any format, no problem. Allegation should be clear, that's all. You put it in any format, you should make it clear. Vague allegations are not valid. If some information is not furnished in GSTR 3B, but furnished in GSTR 9, can it be deemed to be suppression of fact? No, because you have done it in 9. You have disclosed it yourself. So matter ends, in my opinion, if the information required to be disclosed has been disclosed either in 3B or in 9 or whatever it is, matter ends. If cross-examination of third party is not demanded during reply to SCN, can it be demanded during filing of appeal? Yes, you can do it, but the matter will have to be remanded to the adjudicating authority for doing this. See, it is, let me tell you, there are certain things which are fundamental in law and which go to the root of the case. Those things can be taken up. Questions of law can be taken up at any stage. Can penalty under 15% under 74(5) be paid under protest to avoid higher penalty? What is this in 74(5)? Payment of penalty, sir, you can, why you are under protest? If you go under 74(5), what are you doing? When you go under 74(5), you are saying, I don't want to do anything. I'm paying voluntarily so that I don't, what do you say? I want to avoid the show cause notice, correct? Having done so, unless you challenge the provisions of 74(5), you will not be able to do things under protest. If you want to do things under protest, you have to go in appeal. Don't try to ride. I always tell the associates, don't try to ride on two boats. Both the boats going in different directions. Be careful. There are many cases which have come up where the associates later on realized, oh, I should not have gone under 74(5), man. I should not have gone under 74(5). Having gone there, what is my relief? In such cases, you have to challenge 74(5) because it forecloses review of decisions. But whether it will stand the test of such a challenge has to be left to the, and you are in the best position. You have one of the finest high courts. Try it. What is there? Reply to, let us see. In one of my clients' case, the assistant commissioner suo moto issued a rectification order against his own order. Rectification can be done only for arithmetical errors, not for anything and everything. So that, and only for errors apparent on the face of the record. Reply to SCN submitted. Department not passing order. Any directive time limit to pass orders? Please, very clear. Orders will have to be passed within 3 years and 5 years of the date of your annual return when it is to be filed. It's very clear. So if those dates are not adhered to, matter ends. Is there any difference between SCN issued in refund application via RFD and SCN issued on SCN should specifically quote 73 and 74 and tell you whether it's under 73 or 74. You may issue it in RFD 08 to demand back the amounts from you, but it should be specifically telling you whether it is 73 or 74. Then only such an ASEAN will be valid. Because if you are invoking 74, you must make it very clear that the ingredients of fraud, etc., should be mentioned in the notice. If it is not mentioned in the notice, it will go. Can SCN be issued under 73? If there's favorable order in RFD 06 after replying RFD 08, suppose you are given a refund, you get a favorable order, and they want to take back that refund again as erroneous refund, they can issue. But once they've issued one show cause notice, they can't issue another one. When VAT credit for financial year 15-16 assessed increased by the AO after filing, then what? No, I have not understood this. I have not understood this query. You can come on the line and tell me what it is. Can we claim refund of input services in Gujarat under inverted duty structure? Yes, you can claim. Except that I think that the judgment has been stayed by the Supreme Court. So no authority will actually give you the refund. If I'm not mistaken, that judgment has been stayed by the Supreme Court. So no authority will give you any refund. So if you go to the High Court also, they'll say, sorry, my dear, so it has been stayed. So what he's doing is right. Yes, sir. Now you can ask me questions.
Anybody has a question can unmute himself and ask,
Sir,
or raise hand, and we can unmute for you.
Yes, Birendra ji, you can go ahead.
sir,
Birendra ji has a lot of questions, sir. Very happy that Birendra ji has made maximum questions. I would like to see him.
If you can, yes.
good evening, sir.
Good evening. Please tell me, sir.
Sir, can I mix Hindi and English?
No, if you mix Hindi and English, you will get a wrong. Definitely, you'll get a wrong answer because I don't know much of Hindi. So you mix the Hindi and English. Somebody will translate it for me. Otherwise, I'll understand in my own fashion. Then you are in trouble.
Sir,
Then I will be talking like some of our political leaders. Then.
Okay, sir. I'll talk in English only.
Please, please, please. It is better for me. Otherwise, it's risky for you.
Sir, in one of my client is a PSU. SCN was issued to me, and order was passed. After some time, the assistant commissioner himself made the rectification order.
What did he rectify?
In the rectification order, 2 of the points were dropped, and
Okay.
the demand was substantially reduced
Okay.
from 80 lakhs to 36 lakhs.
Be happy. What's the problem?
No, is it within the jurisdiction?
Why are you worried about it? Let the department challenge it. Why are you worried about it? See, assessment proceedings, if you want to rectify any defect, generally, only rectification is possible under 161 when there are errors apparent on the face of the record. Errors apparent means something which does not require argument. Honda CL's case, Supreme Court, you see, does not require arguments. But if the AC himself has rectified the order and dropped certain things, it is the department which has to take up those in appeal and say he has gone beyond section 161.
Okay, sir.
That is the only way they can get it done. You have to be happy. You be happy.
Thank you, sir.
Refund of taxes, etc., etc. Please don't ask me in this. You ask the person who's handling the refund sections, because I will be stepping into his shoes. And generally, my views on some of these are diametrically opposite to the views of some of the other speakers. So you will get 2 views.
Yeah. Yes. Good evening, sir. So the question is in relation to an SCN under excise. During the audit that was conducted, usually the department asked for certain clarifications. So in a written clarification, there were certain molds which were procured and were being used in the factory for the manufacture of the final products for the customer. These as a normal practice, these molds were sold by way of a VAT invoice without the actual removal to the main company, to the customer, and the possession was still with the noticee. However, the invoice which was raised by default, since it was a system generated invoice, it had the date and time of removal. Also, the department during audit asked certain letters to be written, wherein once it was said it was not removed, once it was said it was sent and it came back. However, this was only till the time of audit. At the time of show cause notice, all documents, etc., were properly presented, and a declaration from the other company saying that they've actually never received the goods. But still, the department is bent upon relying upon the one invoice that was there, which said that it mentions the date and time of removal.
No, this is merely on evidence.
Right,
So
sir.
go on evidence, and if you have proof from the other company very clearly saying that we have not received it, then it's for the department to call them and cross-examine them. You have a good case on facts.
Would filing an affidavit also help in such cases?
It does help because the affidavits, when filed, you can be held for filing false affidavits is itself a crime under the IPC. So it will help.
Okay. And does it make a difference if this declaration was actually submitted at the time of filing of commissioner appeals, appeals before the commissioner appeals?
There's nothing wrong with that, as I see, because you may have not have got it at the time of filing reply to
Yes.
note.
Actually, yes.
So got it at the time of filing commissioner appeals. Nothing wrong with it.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
One more question from Mr. Birendra ji. Yes, Birendra ji, you can unmute yourself. Yeah,
Sir,
go ahead.
in the SCN, it has been written that tax has, I have written my query in the chat box also. If you can, 1 minute.
Birendra ji, you can say it. We
Yes,
will
I'm
translate
saying,
it for
yes, 1 minute. Sir, in the SCN, it has been written that it has come to my notice that tax due has not been paid, or short paid, or refund has been released erroneously, or ITC has been wrongly availed. Is it not a vague allegation, sir?
Yeah, it is vague, but if you see the subsequent paragraphs also, there if they have made a specific allegation, then it will hold good. If
Sir,
they have not made
no,
any such thing, it is simply like this, then it is
Yes,
vague and it has to be set aside.
So it has been written like this only.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing
Many
else has
such
been written.
notices are issued like this in mechanical manner, cut and paste jobs.
Yeah, it is a cut and paste job.
Yeah, please challenge it. No problem.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ji wants to ask something.
Yes, sir. Sir, one question I also put in the chat box. Whether now again those notices have started coming in for service tax audit and service tax regime and some third party verification and all the stuff. Now, once the act has been repealed, would they initiate such proceedings?
See, section 174 allows that. Let us look at 174 and you tell me. It has been upheld by the Kerala High Court. It has been upheld by the Karnataka High Court. Unless it is set aside by the Supreme Court, we are going to have problems with this 174. I have always, I have myself filed several petitions. If you look at it, affect any investigation, inquiry, verification, including scrutiny and audit, assessment proceedings, adjudication, any other legal proceedings, or recovery of arrears or remedies. See that clause C, a dangerous clause.
Yes, sir. Sir, but does not that imply only to the proceedings that were pre-existing when the GST Act was introduced?
No, affect any investigation, inquiry, verification, etc., etc., etc. As if these acts had not been so amended or repealed. That means to say, for all the acts committed, then you can continue now, but subject to the law of limitation. Let's understand this. I can take the action, but then it will still be subjected to 73 and 74 of the Finance Act, 1994, or Section 11A of the Excise Act. It has to be taken only under that. But now we are fighting a losing battle because Bombay High Court, Karnataka High Court, Kerala High Court have held 174 is good enough. Let us see what the Supreme Court says.
I believe we have OWS warehousing in Gujarat High Court pending on the same issue. The matter has been stayed, but the decision is pending.
Decision pending, is it? So we'll have to wait and see. Let us wait for some ray of hope in Gujarat.
MA, there is one more question from you.
It was the same.
If we have time, can I ask one more?
Yes,
Sir, during the service tax audit, if at all by coercion some tax was made, the assessee was made to pay certain tax, and then a refund claim was filed, wherein again an SCN was issued, but SCN only spoke that if you have paid the tax, and so the OIO also said you have paid the tax at the time of audit and you have filed a letter, then refund cannot be granted. The SCN and order have not gone into the merits, but does paying the tax at the time of audit and filing a declaration.
See, your High Court, several other High Courts have clearly held paying of tax during inquiry is a recovery method which is not known to law. So if you have paid it, it's a voluntary payment of, it's a deposit, voluntary payment of deposit, not tax. And therefore you are entitled to the refund. And if the original proceedings have not been started or concluded, they have to give you the refund. It is compulsory to give you the refund. You should file a writ petition in such cases. Where the original proceedings, they have not done anything. They're simply sitting with the amounts here and refusing to give the refund. If they're not even issued you a show cause notice or the nothing, then you can go to High Court.
Would CSTAT normally entertain such type of cases?
Oh, see, CSTAT will not have the, you will go to CSTAT on what ground? They will set aside and they will say what happened to original proceedings.
Okay.
Original proceedings are not at all taken means the best forum is High Court, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank
you. Right, sir.
One more question that has come up. Can you take it from the chat box? I'm not being able to scroll it up. Tapas or Hem, can you take this, please?
I can't see any question after Hem's question, sir.
No, there is this trans one and refund of the same.
Sir, I think only you three as co-host can see that.
The question is, VAT ITC for 15-16 assessed increased by the AO, what we claim in the annual return 205, but we have filed Tran 1 before the issuance of the assessment order. So the increased credit of VAT as assessed.
Does this anything to do with the show cause notice proceedings?
No, this is how
I think it's in relation to claiming of additional credit after assessment and filing of.
File it, take it now also. What is wrong? Tran 1 you have filed based on say 100 rupees. Now, consequent to your VAT assessments, let us say your credit amount has been increased. In my opinion, you can apply for a refund and get the refund of taxes. Absolutely, you can get refund of the taxes.
Sir, in one case, the assessee had paid service tax on ocean freight, and pursuant to the judgment of Gujarat High Court, a refund was claimed, which was also granted.
Yes.
Now the department is in appeal in this case because I think the department has appealed in Supreme Court.
So what? See, they're keeping it alive. They're keeping the issue alive in the sense that if, let us keep this very clearly. If the notice for recovery of refund has been given in time, within the time periods that are specified, then there is no problem for the department in keeping this issue alive till such time the Supreme Court passes. But if that refund itself, show cause notices issued beyond the time limits, you can have that set aside. No problem. That is a completely independent issue. They are only keeping it alive consequent to, orders of the Supreme Court. That they can do. There is nothing wrong with that, what they would have. They have followed
this. You just have to wait.
No, you have to wait. The Gujarat High Court, they followed the Gujarat High Court decision by giving you the refund. Now refunds will, if the decisions have been stayed, you will not get the refunds now also. I don't know if those decisions have been stayed. I don't remember.
Not stayed.
Then you are entitled to refund, matter ends. And you will have to give back the refunds if they've issued you a show cause, they've issued a show cause notice when Supreme Court decides the cases. Those are all very good decisions. In my opinion, those are all very good decisions actually.
Any more questions? I think sir is also, we've almost reached to the closing time. Tapas bhai?
Yes, sir.
Can you propose the vote of thanks? And
Sure.
the end of the session?
On behalf of the Chartered Accountants Association, Ahmedabad, I would like to thank you, sir, for sparing your time and deliberating on this important and unique topic, which normally we understand all those nuances of the GST related provisions, but this is also something really very important for everybody to understand now that the annual returns of 3 years have completed and people would now start receiving show cause notices, and there will be so many issues that would crop up. This entire 2 hours that you have spent with us, I think this is going to help us a lot. Thank you, Chartered Accountant Association, Ahmedabad, President Monish Bhai, Hem Bhai, and all other committee members for organizing this wonderful series and having the best faculties with us. Thank you, Raghuraman sir, for again for sparing your time and sharing all your knowledge with us, and in fact answering all the questions, and we are still closing well within the time. Thank you very much, sir.
Just to add, Raghuraman sir, our memento, because we cannot give it here virtually, so we'll be sending it across to your office. So please accept it on behalf of everyone of us.
Certainly, sir. Certainly. My pleasure to be addressing all of you and seeing all my old friends again. I am very thankful to you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. And to the members, we will be again assembling on the 16th. The links would be shared to you across, and we'll be discussing on the same. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.